Hello, kindergarten. This is Mr. McAuliffe. I'm coming to you from next door your classroom because your classroom is still being cleaned by Mr. Sweet and Mr. Ed. So I'm in Mr. Scrocky's classroom next door, Mrs. House, but you'll recognize Mrs. Miner's old classroom furniture that she has. This happens to be in here, so I'm sitting in this today while I read to you, as I've done each week for the past several weeks. I hope that you're all doing well. I miss you, and it's rather quiet without you guys here. I much like it better when you're sitting in front of me and I read to you. But until then, we have to do it this way, so sit back, open your ears and your imagination, and listen to a really silly story that I picked out for this week. In fact, silly is in the title. It's called Don't Be Silly, Mrs. Miner, by Judy Cox. She's the author. Illustrated by Joe Matthau. Illustrated means he drew the pictures. Let's find out why Mrs. Miner is so silly. Don't be silly, Mrs. Miner. Excuse me. Mrs. Miner, our teacher, is really silly. Every day she says, "Good morning, children. Please make sure you hang up your goats." Don't be silly, Mrs. Miner. Don't you mean hang up our coats? At 8 o'clock, our teacher announces, "Now please rise for the frog salute." "Oh no," we shout, "not the frog salute. You mean the flag salute." It's 9 o'clock. Time to write, Mrs. Miner says. "Get out your paper and penguins." "Don't be silly, Mrs. Miner. We can't write with penguins. Don't you mean our paper and pencils?" At 10 o'clock, it's recess time. Our teacher looks out the window. "It just stopped raining cats and dogs," she said. "Don't step in a poodle." "Don't you mean a puddle, Mrs. Miner?" we ask, giggling. We play outside until our teacher blows her whistle. "Recess is over," she says. "It's time to chameleon." Chameleon? Don't be silly, Mrs. Miner. You mean it's time to come in. At 11 o'clock, Mrs. Miner says, "You may get drinks, boys and girls, but don't cut in the line." "You mean the line," we all yell. At 12 o'clock, our teacher announces, "Time for lunch. Wash your hands with soap and walrus." Walrus? You're silly, Mrs. Miner. You mean soap and water. We can't wash our hands with a walrus. It's very important to wash your hands with soap and water. As we get in line, Mrs. Miner reminds us, "Don't forget your lunch, bunny." "Oh, that's right. You mean our lunch money," we all shout. Mrs. Miner puts on her glasses to read the menu. "They have gorilla cheese sandwiches today." "Don't be silly, Mrs. Miner. You mean grilled cheese sandwiches, not gorilla cheese." At 1 o'clock, our teacher picks up a book. It's story time. "Come sit on the bug." "The bug? You're silly," we cry. "You mean sit on the rug." At 2 o'clock, Mrs. Miner calls us to the back of the room. It's time for art. Who wants to paint on the weasel? "Don't you mean the easel, Mrs. Miner? How can you be so silly?" we all ask. After art, our teacher asks, "Who's hungry? We have parrot sticks and quackers." "Don't you mean carrot sticks and crackers?" we all say. At 3 o'clock, Mrs. Miner smiles. What a fun day we've all had. But now it's time to go home. Put on your bats and kittens. Don't be silly, Mrs. Miner. You mean our hats and mittens. When we're ready to leave, our teacher goes to the door. Butterfly children! Butterfly children? No, Mrs. Miner, we shout. You don't mean butterfly. You mean goodbye. Mrs. Miner laughs and we laugh too. Butterfly, Mrs. Miner. See you gator, we all say. And we wave goodbye as we get on the octopus. I hope you enjoyed that silly book as much as I enjoyed reading it to you. I miss you, kindergarten, and I hope that you're all doing well and that you're listening to your moms or dads or whoever's helping you with your schoolwork at home. I look forward to the day when I can read to you again in person. But until then, please remember to be safe, be healthy, and be strong. Bye-bye, kindergarten. I miss you.